Coming to you from the depths of the galaxy, bringing you hot takes, hot news, and spicy discussions about games. We are the Uneducated Gamers! This episode is brought to you by GalaxyGameTV.com and Shipping Shield, creator of the cardboard top loader alternative, environmentally safe shipping card protection made in the USA. Go to shippingshieldus.com for more details.
What's up, gamers? This is the Uneducated Gamers Podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Michael.
And today we got yet another spicy, fun episode talking about a console that I hold very near, dear in my heart. Before we get into that, Mike, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Are you talking about the Neo Geo? Is that the console that you hold very dear to your heart?
No, the NES.
Yeah, okay.
No. But speaking of the NES, little side jaunt, really quick. My kids who are ages 9 and 11, just, they've been, they play on their tablets for years or what have you, and then, been playing on the Switch. They have started to now appreciate Super Mario Brothers 3. In fact, my youngest is playing Super Mario Brothers 3, and he's just like excited. He's like, I just want to beat this thing.
It's
he just
such a good game.
Going. It is such a good game. Oh man. But no, we're not talking about the NES or the Neo Geo, were you even like
I was not alive for the Neo Geo.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so. Today we're talking about the Xbox, and really specifically, kind of like this sort of Xbox is on the decline in a way. Game Pass's cost is rising, and well, I mean, honestly, like a lot of people are questioning, does it even make sense to buy an Xbox these days? Mike, I'm gonna first toss that one over to you, and kind of like someone from an outside looking in, because I know you don't have one, but like if you were in the market, like you look at this, what's going on, like what do you think?
I feel like we've talked about this before. I loved the Xbox 360. That was my favorite console. I was the right age, the right time, just to jam. Halo 3 2007 was so many hours playing Halo on the Xbox 360. But I came to realize how much I disliked the walled garden aspect of consoles, and the fact that you lost a lot of stuff going from generation to generation. So as soon as I could afford to, I swapped to PC. It's just a lot more backwards compatibility. There's a lot more customizability and the ability to like optimize, mismatch, whatever. But point is, I wish consoles were better, because I 100% respect the reason that they're there, and I just don't see them as super useful these days. With the caveat that I just bought an Xbox LIX.
But again, that is still kind of a PC-ish device.
That's the appeal of it, is it's actually a PC.
Yeah. But like on that, and with purchasing that, right, came a Game Pass subscription for you to try out, right?
I got 3 months, 3 months of premium.
Part of this is, Game Pass is gone up by 100%, right? It goes from Game Pass Ultimate, was $19.99. It now is $29.99, which is
ridiculous.
At the Xbox console at launch was $4.99. Now it's $6.49. Like the rising cost of this stuff, right? In a lot of cases, become a barrier to entry of being doing any of this. But here's the thing that I'll say about Xbox, at least the Xbox Series X, thinking about it this way, is you can pick up an Xbox and play all 3 generations of Xbox games. Actually 4 if you include Xbox One being a generation.
You can with some limits. Not every game has been ported over, which is fine. right?
I would say, though, majority of the games. Now, I have a very extensive library, and there is not an Xbox or an Xbox 360 game that I cannot put in that I can put in the machine that does not play. And what they have done now is with some of these, it becomes a download code that says, okay, for example, Max Payne.
Oh, yeah.
So the Xbox title for Max Payne, right? I put that in the Xbox Series X. The Xbox disc I put in the Xbox Series X, and it then downloads the game.
Yep, because they use it as proof of ownership. So they do that with Windows too for a lot of games where you can, you've played the game on Xbox. You've got because you put the key in there because you've had the game on Xbox, and then it'll recognize and say, "Hey, we see you've played this on Xbox. We're gonna give it to you on Windows too, so you can download it on your PC through the Windows Store."
That comes with value. It
really does. It really does.
So, like, but the question is, and really thinking of the existing Xbox Series X, right? Like, thinking about my initial question is it valuable? Is it a valuable investment to be able to say, I'm going to invest in the Xbox ecosystem in order to play this gigantic, any of these games that come within the Xbox ecosystem if you are in the market of getting a console?
No. Roll credits.
Why not, Mike?
I don't like walled gardens, man. I don't like Apple for that exact reason. I don't have any Apple products. I don't like Apple's the big one. But yeah, the whole like if you buy a PlayStation, you can only buy PlayStation games. So sorry if you want to play Halo, go fuck yourself. That pisses me off. But
okay, but
it's evolving away from that. And so going forward, and this is part of why I bought the Ally X, I am very interested to see where this goes forward in the next couple of generations, and it may make me a console lover again.
I mean, I think the investment is an interesting proposal in a way that if somebody is targeting to say buy their first console, buy a new generation console who hasn't bought a console in a while, right? You can't buy a PS5 and play PS4, PS3. You can't. You'd have to repurchase it. So if you had it on your shelf, you couldn't necessarily put it in and play it. You can with the Xbox, which I was very surprised on how much better that is since launch with the Xbox, right? With the PlayStation, you have to buy more, right? The Switch 2 actually is pretty good. The crossover from Switch 1 to Switch 2 is pretty good. However, it's really going to depend on the developer whether they how they built it and whether the game that they created is going to support the upscaling. And that is a big thing with the Switch right now. I don't know if you've run into that. Oh, I don't think you have a Switch.
I don't have a Switch 2. I walled garden.
You have a Switch 1.
I'm done with Nintendo.
So like I will say that there is a noticeable when a game is not necessarily scalable from a graphic standpoint, you can notice some fuzziness within your Switch 1 to Switch 2. But to me, that's not an indictment on the Switch 2. That's an indictment on the developer of the game, right, in my opinion. Because there are games on the Switch 1 that do translate to Switch 2 without problems.
I will cut some slack on the developers. Sometimes it's very difficult going from one gen to another to make sure that the graphics still work the same way.
For sure.
But yeah.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there's a difference between optimizing to 720 versus 1080, right?
Well, yeah.
When you leave a generation, if something's optimized for 720 and you're putting it on 4K, boy, does that look like crap. But if it's 1080 and you upscale it to 4K, it actually doesn't look all that bad. It's not drastically noticeable. I mean, you can notice some things like a notice, aliasing past there, but it's not as bad as from 720 to 4K.
Yeah, 720 to 4K is like when broadcast television went to HD digital.
Exactly.
The news anchor looks like what?
You can see the football? What are you talking about?
Well, there's a ball in this game. I thought it was just men in tights.
So, but outside of the investment part of it, right? One of the other arguments and one of the other components of this that people sort of kind of are talking about is, are these cost changes, the Game Pass, the hardware, so on and so forth, all this stuff, is this related to more signs of a business problem at Microsoft or Xbox? And a lot of people are, can make good arguments of potentially that this spells disaster for Xbox. Like, I guess where I'm going at it is are we seeing these rising costs as a result of some of bad business decisions, like, for example, buying Blizzard or doing some of this other stuff and buying all these studios? Like, what is Xbox and Microsoft truly haven't come out and say it's because of this. I mean, they say market conditions, but boy, that's a very blanket statement when you talk about market conditions.
It's a nothing statement. It doesn't mean
Exactly.
anything.
Exactly. So what's your thoughts?
I do not have a PhD in business or finance.
Is this trouble? Is this spelling trouble?
Trouble? No. So for the existence of the Xbox as a all-in-one device, maybe. And my reason for that is it kind of didn't make sense, in my opinion, that it existed in the first place. Microsoft is and kind of always has been a software company. They make operating systems, they make applications, and they want to put those operating systems and applications on as many computers as possible without care of what the hardware is or who owns them. That's kind of always been their business model. I was not really privy at the time to know why they went into hardware manufacturing to make the original Xbox, but I feel like they're trying to return to form in the last few years of, we're a software company, not a hardware company. Even just with the way they do everything, right? And I think this Game Pass is one of the ways that they could get away from having to manufacture the Xbox. I think that's genuinely something in their sights, is to eventually kill that. That being said, the ROG Ally X is an interesting product to me, partially because of that being my belief. And I think that Microsoft made a good decision in partnering with ROG. ROG is the hardware manufacturer. ROG designed all the hardware for that. They produced and released all the hardware for the Ally. What Microsoft did was partner with them, give them a little more funding, and give them some help on software design, particularly in the UI, put their front end on it, and made it a partner project. And I feel like that's a great direction for the Xbox platform to go, where the actual hardware is contracted out to a reputable business and Microsoft can spend time polishing the user experience.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I think there's an and in there, right? And that and, or in some cases, I guess, could be and or there's going to be a consumer market that is going to not want to buy a computer, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think what I would say is, it's an interesting conversation too, because I think, on one hand, I think the reason why Microsoft created the Xbox was to get into that consumer market, right? And to reach those folks from a gaming standpoint that they couldn't reach because they don't own a PC, right? Or they don't want to own a PC, or they don't have a desire to own a PC, right?
It was an underserved market then, and I think it's still an underserved market now.
What I'm curious about, though, and I'm really sort of thinking about this, is I almost feel like the cost is less about the business and more about, truly, again, that blanket statement of market conditions. Things like, in one of our previous episodes, we talked about RAM, right? Like, any of these chipsets, like, there's a lot of factors when it comes into building consoles. Here's the other thing. And for years, most consoles were built and, made with companies losing money every one that was sold.
Yes.
They would make their money off of software sales. The one thing that's been problematic for Xbox for this current generation is software sales. Software sales is drastically down. And so I think the change leads into a twofold. One, Xbox's model was about accessibility. That accessibility was giving those people who got Game Pass the ability to play games without having to go buy them, right? By virtue of that, though, especially with the acquisition of Blizzard / Activision and one of the most popular franchises in Call of Duty, boy, those numbers look a lot smaller when Call of Duty goes on Game Pass as opposed to when it's out in the mass market for sale.
Does that affect the revenue? Do we have charts for that?
So there hasn't been any legitimate charts that I've seen that truly kind of show that market ebb and flow, but it has to. Like, it really has to, because Call of Duty.
We have a PhD in vibes here.
It's Call of Duty historically is a $250 million game a year title, right? And go ahead.
I was gonna say it's funny to use Call of Duty as your reference point here, because Call of Duty, I feel like, is not, again, we operate on vibes here. Call of Duty, I feel like, is just much less popular now than it used to be. Not because it's still kind of got a cultural foothold, but the games suck now. I feel like Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2 era Call of Duty was the height, and it's kind of just gone down from there.
This is what I'll say, right? I've never been truly a Call of Duty person, right? I've been a Battlefield guy for years, since Battlefield 3 came out. Now, what I'll say is Battlefield games have been really bad and have fallen on their face in the last decade. However, Battlefield 6 coming along, and also some of these other live service games like Rainbow Six Siege and some of these other ones that are actually kind of taking some of that marketplace from a first person shooter, the FPS standpoint. There are better contenders now than there were 10 years ago, per se, going against Call of Duty. But that doesn't go without saying, Call of Duty is a juggernaut. Like, it is by far the number one FPS out there that is not CS:GO, right? Or, I mean, any of the ones that you see, like League of Legends or any of that stuff in esports, I'm not counting those. I'm talking true consumer market. Call of Duty is by far the biggest juggernaut.
Does it beat Overwatch? Well, Overwatch fell off a cliff.
And also, Overwatch is still part of the esports sort of arena in my eyes. So
yeah, but it had a very large consumer presence. I mean, it was free to play, right? Well, no, it wasn't. It was $20. It was $20 up front.
Yeah. But again, comparing Call of Duty to Overwatch is like watermelon to a avocado.
They're
like,
completely
they're not
different
even
games.
Not even close to being the same realm.
Call of Duty and Halo are completely different games, for that matter.
So if we're saying that this is not spelling trouble, right? This just kind of just feels more like a market / economic problem for Microsoft, right? Here's one, or do you have more?
I don't know. Without seeing financial data, I would have no way to form an opinion around that. Is Game Pass failing? Maybe is the real question here. I suspect that, like many things, because you talked about how we used to make consoles as loss leaders, but if they're trying to get away from consoles, they don't have that loss leader anymore. Game Pass has to come up. I also make the argument, why was it so cheap to begin with? It probably shouldn't have been, because that's a thing that businesses consistently do. It's a business strategy, right? They underprice things to choke out competition, and then they raise the price later to what it should have been to begin with. And I hate that practice, but I can kind of see that would be what was happening with Game Pass. Same thing that's going to happen with AI down the line.
I mean, I think that's a fair argument. I would say, though, if you remember, and we covered this a couple of years ago, Game Pass was getting a hike, $24.99 at one point, right? And people went all up in arms and they rolled that back.
Is that
right?
is that $24.99 monthly?
Yeah.
Oof, to Ludafisk.
Yeah. So like they rolled that back, right? They were like, okay, we're not gonna make changes. We're gonna keep it that way. And that was a few years ago, right? So I feel like, again, from an inflationary standpoint, a market standpoint, like, you can almost say like they were gonna raise it to $24.99. Now it's $29.99, which at that point, the step up 5 to 5 in 3 years. If you look at your Netflix account, your Netflix used to be $7.99. Now it's $14.99.
I don't have Netflix either.
But but I'm just saying, these things happen over time, right? And it's that inflationary cost, the cost of hardware and delivery and so on and so forth. I just think, honestly, this is my opinion, I truly think this is a market adjustment, and not necessarily spelling, like everybody else is trying to say, that this is a troublesome, and Microsoft and Xbox are about to close down.
Yeah, this is not things are going to close down. Like I said, I would not be shocked at all if they dropped the Xbox hardware as a first party machine, only because they want to focus on software, not because it was in trouble. However, that being said, if your product, software, hardware, or otherwise, is aimed at entry-level consumers, particularly consumers who don't have the cash or don't want to spend the cash on a full PC gaming rig, you can price them out really easily. And if you're not careful with your market adjustments, you're going to lose your audience.
Yeah. And I think, and on the same wavelength of that, right? Like, I almost think if we think of Xbox, the current iteration of the Xbox, like as it is today, Xbox Series X, I think this is the last of its kind, in my opinion. The existing iteration of Xbox as a console, this is the last one of its time. It will not exist in the way it exists today going forward. Even the next generation, I don't think it's going to exist the same way.
I think that might be true.
And here's the reason why I say that. If you look at their investment on this quote unquote Windows full screen experience that they've put in the ROG Ally X, as well as now being opened up to other things, like if I wanted to do it right now on my PC, like I could turn on full screen experience, and that's where they're going, right? That is the whole thing of, for gaming, to make everything an Xbox. It's funny, like we've chatted about this in last year or so, like in on Discord, right? This whole everything's an Xbox thing it was hilarious. It's like, what do you mean everything's an Xbox? Nobody is getting it. Nobody's understanding it. I wonder if, like, is this what they were meaning silently, that everything is going to be an Xbox, meaning that a console is not going to matter anymore when it comes to Xbox. It's going to be whatever hardware you want to use to play it.
I'm not gonna say a console doesn't matter. I still think that you want to have a device. Now, maybe Microsoft doesn't make the Xbox anymore. Maybe it's all Game Pass. Maybe it's all Xbox UI. It's an ecosystem, blah, 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 blah. But I still think that it is important to have consoles because they provide entry-level places to get people into video games, whether it's adults with little money or whether it's grandma buying a Christmas gift for a kid, right? Like, you're not going to buy a $1,200 machine for little Timmy to play Pac-Man on.
Yeah, but nobody's buying a machine to play Pac-Man anymore.
Grandma thinks they are. Your Pokemans and your Yu-Gi-Ohs, as my grandma would say.
Let me give you this proposition. What if it was a PC Xbox that you would buy off the shelf?
That's where I think they're going. I think the ROG Ally X is evidence of that, and I wholly support it. I love it. I love that because what does that do? It takes away my biggest complaint of the walled garden. This is now a machine that I feel like I have more control over. It is a machine that I have more flexibility with. I can get games on Steam, still play them on my Xbox, and vice versa. The only problem is the cost. The ROG Xbox Ally X is exorbitantly expensive. I have one basically because I sold Magic cards to buy it, right? So, like, I more or less got it for free. the way that works out, or at least transferred money I already spent to another thing. But that you can't, like, my brother, my youngest brother, let's say, isn't just going to randomly go buy one off the shelf at a Walmart with a 4-digit price tag. You still have to have the entry-level device. So once you have a proof of concept there, you should be able to scale it down, provided, the rest of the market isn't completely nuts.
But wouldn't you think they would do something like similar to what they do today with the Xbox Series S, where it is a lower cost device, but it runs a Windows operating system?
Yep.
Right?
I would think so, because you can
and
just
instead of the Xbox, the X, I forget what the Xbox OS is called now, but instead of the Xbox SOS, the becomes now a machine that runs on Windows and is the Windows full screen experience that you can then use for any of that, for Steam, for GOG, for whatever. The one thing that'll be interesting to understand, though, is how that translates with sort of PC requirements, right? When we talk about certifying, GPU and drivers and Bluetooth and so on and so forth, how does that, I would see that could be a challenge on getting that to work as a broader ecosystem if it's not a true PC, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's a lower cost device like that.
Well, let's look at the Steam machine, right? That's exactly what the Steam machine is. It's the Gabe Cube. It's a console-like device that is effectively a gaming PC, but in a smaller, easier to handle packaged format.
But it's isolated to Steam games, right? So they have more control. It's more of a locked ecosystem.
Is it? No, I don't think it is. It just runs SteamOS, which is it's just a flavor of Linux. It's just Linux with a specific coat of paint over the top.
So, like, one of the things that sort of shied me away from getting a Steam Deck versus getting a Rogue Ally was the fact that the complexity to install, because I have a pretty big Epic and GOG library, because I like the free games from Epic, and I like a lot of the good old game stuff on GOG, plus it's DRM free. Like, I have big libraries there. And the complexity I saw to like do that on a Steam Deck, I was just like, no, thank you. Like, I'm technically savvy, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of that is just unfamiliarity with Linux, right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
that's a hurdle for anybody, because Linux has not served itself well by being as user unfriendly as it has been.
Sure, and it doesn't have to. Like, that's what makes Linux actually great, is its flexibility, right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, I like Linux. I mean, I've run Linux servers before, but like at the same time, for me to like pick up and deal with managing my library, I'm not going to do that on Linux. I'm sorry. It's not simple in any stretch.
SteamOS has brought it a long way. I suspect that, we're talking about new consoles are probably coming out 2030. I suspect by 2030, SteamOS will be genuinely a major contender.
Yeah, probably. I mean, what I think is interesting, and kind of looping us back around and kind of closing the loop on sort of Xbox Series X being the last console of its time, I do think, and thinking about, some of our previous conversations about, the next generation of consoles, I think, again, Xbox as a console itself is no longer going to exist. Not the way
it's going to be a miniature PC.
It's going to be
It's going to be a scaled down PC with a price tag that is attractive to entry level users.
Do you think that this happens in this next generation, or do they go one more generation? Like, I'm thinking they don't go another generation, but there are a lot of people that are thinking that Xbox still has one more generation in them. What's your?
I think it depends entirely on how successful the Xbox ROG Ally X is.
You think it hinges on that?
Because that's their first experimenting with it, right? They've partnered with a third-party manufacturer to make hardware. They've put their Xbox big picture UI on it, and it is what it is. It is a consoleized PC experience with Xbox front end. And if that then they'll pivot to that as soon as possible.
I like it, by the way.
I
know
love
we
it.
have an
I
episode.
love the machine.
I know we have an episode coming up on that pretty soon, so I don't want to waste too much air on that right now. But I'll tell you what, it is a fantastic direction. I think that they're going with that, and I like it.
I love the new form factor of that Switch kind of popularized, where you have consoles that you can undock and have them be handhelds. Love it. Definitely there's work to be done, and I can tell you right now that Windows on a Game Boy device is buggy as shit. But that's just Windows being Windows. That
Fair
being
enough.
said, I love it. And it's got the wife approval factor, because we pulled that giant gaming PC off of the entertainment center in the living room. And she's like, this is not ugly.
Happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna poke at you again.
Do it.
Is the existing Xbox, will they have one more generation of the existing Xbox? Yes or no?
In order to accurately answer that question, I would need like access to, Xbox's background. Because either A is like, even if the Xbox LIX, even if that experiment goes really well, which I think it will, they may have already years ago, because pipelines go years at a time, right? Production pipelines. They may have already committed to a new Xbox, like true console style gen. That may already be in the works. They may have already done the development for it. They may have already, it may already be there, just not marketed yet. It's all internal. So if that exists, then we're getting one more gen. But I think after that, they're going to go consoleized PC. I think that's going to be the play.
Thanks for listening to our most recent episode of Uneducated Gamers. You can go to Galaxy Game TV to post comments on each of our episodes, or if you have a question or a topic you would like us to include in an episode, feel free to leave a comment. Until next week, we bid you farewell.